For 17 years, I cooked every single holiday meal while my family took photos without me. Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, birthdays. I spent days prepping, cooking, serving. They ate, laughed, posed for Instagram. I washed dishes alone in the kitchen, invisible. Until last Thanksgiving, when my sister posted 47 photos of our perfect family dinner. Not one included me. That's when I realized I wasn't family. I was their unpaid holiday catering service. So this Christmas, I decided to give them exactly what they deserved. Nothing. My name is Margaret Anderson, and I should have seen the signs years ago. But when you're trapped in the golden cage of being the family chef, everything looks normal from the inside. It started innocent enough. I was 19, fresh out of culinary school, bursting with pride about my knife skills and my perfect pie crusts. My mom would brag to the neighbors, "Margaret makes the most incredible turkey. We're so lucky to have our own little chef." The compliments felt like warm honey. I was useful. I was needed. I belonged. That first Thanksgiving I hosted, I remember standing in my tiny apartment kitchen at 4 a.m., completely in my element. 20 people were coming. My checklist covered 3 pages. Turkey prep, cranberry sauce from scratch, homemade rolls, green bean casserole, mashed potatoes, stuffing, gravy, 2 kinds of pie. I had timed everything to the minute. The turkey would rest while the rolls finished baking. The gravy would stay warm in the slow cooker. Every dish would hit the table at exactly the right temperature. My phone buzzed constantly that morning. "Can you add sweet potato casserole? Tommy's girlfriend is vegetarian." "Mom wants her special cornbread stuffing instead of regular." "Bring extra wine. The Johnsons are coming too." Each request felt like validation. They trusted me. They needed me. They couldn't imagine Thanksgiving without me. I should have noticed that nobody asked if I needed help. Nobody wondered if cooking for 20 people was stressful. Nobody thought to say, "Margaret, sit down and enjoy the meal you just spent 2 days creating." Instead, I served everyone else first, making sure their plates were perfect, their glasses full, their needs met. By the time I sat down, my food was cold and the conversation had moved on. After dinner, while everyone gathered in the living room sharing stories and laughing, I stayed in the kitchen, alone, washing dish after dish, storing leftovers, cleaning up the explosion of pots and pans that somehow nobody else seemed to see. My back ached, my feet throbbed, but I told myself this was love. This was how families worked. The photos from that day tell the whole story, though I didn't understand it then. 43 pictures of smiling faces around my table, everyone looking happy and fed and grateful. Except there's not a single shot of me. Not one. Because I was always behind the camera, or in the kitchen, or serving someone else. I had made myself invisible in my own home. But the compliments afterward made it all worth it, or so I thought. "Margaret, you're amazing. Best Thanksgiving ever. You're so talented. We don't know what we'd do without you." The praise felt like oxygen. It filled up all the empty spaces inside me that I didn't even know existed. My mom started introducing me to people as our family chef. At first, it felt special, important, like having a superpower. "Margaret loves cooking," she'd tell everyone. "She lives for these big family dinners. She can't help herself. It's just who she is." And I believed her. I believed that was true. The requests started small. "Could you handle Easter too? You're just so much better at it than the rest of us." Then birthdays. Then random Sunday dinners. Then anytime more than 4 people wanted to eat together. Somehow, without me ever agreeing to it, I had become the family's official holiday coordinator, menu planner, grocery shopper, prep chef, head cook, server, and cleanup crew. All rolled into one. All for free. All without recognition. The pattern was so gradual, so subtle that I didn't recognize what was happening. Like slowly boiling a frog, they turned up the heat degree by degree. One extra responsibility at a time. One more expectation. One more assumption that I would just handle everything. By year 3, they weren't even asking anymore. They would just show up. "What time's dinner?" became, "We'll be there at 5. My house became the default location. My kitchen became their personal restaurant. My time became their commodity. And I let it happen because I thought this was love. I thought this was belonging. But there were cracks in the foundation, even then. Little moments that should have been red flags. Like when my brother David brought his new girlfriend to Christmas dinner and introduced her to everyone by name, except me. "And that's Margaret," he said, gesturing toward the kitchen where I was pulling rolls out of the oven. "She handles all this food stuff. Not my sister. Not the amazing woman who's been cooking for 6 hours so we could all be together. Just Margaret, food stuff." Or the time my mom was talking to her book club friends about how stressful hosting holidays could be. "Oh, I wouldn't know," she laughed. "Margaret takes care of all that for us. She loves it. She can't sit still anyway. She'd be miserable if she wasn't busy in the kitchen." The women nodded knowingly, but I caught one of them looking at me with something that might have been pity. I pushed that thought away. My mom was right. I did love cooking, didn't I? The gaslighting was so smooth, so consistent that I started to doubt my own reality. When I felt exhausted after cooking for 15 people, I told myself I was being dramatic. When I felt invisible during family gatherings, I reminded myself that someone had to handle the kitchen. When I felt taken for granted, I convinced myself I was being selfish. Good daughters don't keep score. Good daughters give freely. Good daughters don't complain about showing love through service. They reinforced this narrative every chance they got. "Margaret's so good at this. We could never do what Margaret does. Margaret has such a gift." The praise felt real, but looking back, it was designed to keep me in place, to make me feel special about being used, to convince me that my value lay in what I could provide, not who I was. Christmas became a 3-day marathon. I'd start prep on December 23rd, shopping and chopping and marinating. December 24th was baking day. Cookies, pies, bread, casseroles that could be reheated. December 25th started at 5 a.m. with turkey prep and didn't end until after midnight cleanup. I'd collapse into bed exhausted but satisfied. Another successful holiday. Another year of being needed. The photos from Christmas always followed the same pattern. Beautiful shots of the perfectly set table. Gorgeous close-ups of golden turkey and colorful sides. Candid moments of family members laughing together. Group shots of everyone gathered around the tree. And in every single album, I'm either completely absent or partially visible. An arm reaching in to refill someone's glass. A blurry figure in the background carrying a platter. It became a family joke, almost. "Where's Margaret?" someone would ask when they were taking pictures. "Oh, she's doing kitchen stuff. She'll be out in a minute." But I was never out in a minute. There was always another dish to check, another spill to clean, another person who needed something, and by the time I finished, they'd moved on to the next moment, the next conversation, the next photo opportunity. My sister Sarah was the worst about this. She had perfected the art of the Instagram holiday post. Professional quality photos with perfect lighting and heartwarming captions about family traditions and blessed to be surrounded by love. Her Thanksgiving post from last year got 342 likes. "Grateful for this beautiful chaos," she wrote, posting a carousel of images that showed everyone except the person who made it all possible. Me. I started timing myself out of curiosity and then out of growing resentment. 17 hours of prep, cooking, and cleanup for Thanksgiving 2023. Not including the 3 shopping trips or the 2 days of planning the menu around everyone else's dietary restrictions and preferences. Sarah spent maybe 20 minutes helping me set the table and considered herself a co-host. The family group chat had become a constant source of stress. "Margaret, can you add stuffed mushrooms this year?" "Margaret, Uncle Bill is bringing his new wife. She's gluten-free." "Margaret, what time should we arrive? Will there be appetizers?" Not one message asking if I needed help. Not one person offering to bring a main dish or handle dessert. Just endless requests and assumptions that I would handle everything. When I tried to push back, even gently, the response was always the same. "But you're so good at it." "We trust you more than ourselves. It won't be the same without your cooking." They made my exhaustion sound like false modesty. They made my frustration sound like fishing for compliments. They made my boundaries sound like letting the family down. The breaking point started building during Thanksgiving 2024. I was operating on 3 hours of sleep, standing in my kitchen at dawn, when my mom called to add 3 more people to the dinner count. "I hope that's okay," she said, but she wasn't really asking. She was informing. "They're going through a rough time, and I couldn't bear to let them spend Thanksgiving alone. You understand?" I understood, all right. I understood that my time, my money, my energy, and my stress didn't matter. What mattered was my mom's image as the generous matriarch who welcomed everyone to her table. Except it wasn't her table. It was mine. It wasn't her time or effort. It was mine. But somehow she got all the credit for the kindness while I got all the work. The dinner itself was flawless as always. The turkey was perfect, golden and juicy. The sides were restaurant quality. The timing was impeccable. Everyone raved about the food, about the warmth, about what a wonderful tradition this was. I should have felt proud. Instead, I felt invisible. I served 26 people that day. I carved turkey, dished sides, refilled drinks, cleared plates, and smiled until my face hurt. I listened to stories I'd heard a dozen times, laughed at jokes that weren't funny, and made small talk with people who saw me as the help, not as family. And when dinner was over, they all migrated to the living room while I faced a kitchen that looked like a bomb had gone off. That's when Sarah started taking pictures. I watched from the kitchen doorway as she orchestrated the perfect family photos. "Everyone squeeze in," she called. "Mom, you sit here. Dad, stand behind her. Kids, get in front. David, move to the left." Click, click, click. Different arrangements, different poses, different combinations. Grandparents with grandkids. Siblings together, the whole family minus one. "Should we get Margaret?" my nephew asked innocently. "She's cleaning up," Sarah said without even looking toward the kitchen. "She'll be done in a bit." But she never came to get me, and I never left the dishes to join them, because that wasn't my role. My role was to clean up their mess while they created memories I would only see later on social media. Later that night, after everyone had gone home with their carefully packed containers of leftovers, I sat alone in my clean kitchen scrolling through Sarah's Instagram story. 47 photos and videos from our amazing family Thanksgiving. Beautiful, warm, perfect images of a beautiful, warm, perfect family. Everyone laughing, everyone included, everyone looking grateful and loved, everyone except me. There wasn't a single image that included me, not even by accident, not even a partial shot of my arm or shoulder. I had spent 3 days and over $400 making this magical family gathering happen, and according to the photographic record, I didn't exist. That's when it hit me. I wasn't invisible by accident. I was invisible by design. They needed me out of the pictures so they could maintain the illusion that this beautiful family tradition just happened naturally, that the food appeared on the table by magic, that the perfect holiday experience materialized without effort or sacrifice, or someone working themselves to exhaustion behind the scenes. I was the family secret, the ghost in their machine, the engine that powered their perfect holiday fantasy, but I had to stay hidden because acknowledging me would ruin the illusion. If they admitted how much I did, they'd have to admit how little they did. If they included me in the gratitude, they'd have to include me in the credit. If they saw me as family, they'd have to treat me like family. But I wasn't family. I was staff, unpaid, unrecognized, disposable staff. I sat in that kitchen at 2 a.m., looking at my hands raw from washing dishes, my feet swollen from standing for 18 hours, my back screaming from lifting heavy pots and leaning over counters. I thought about 17 years of this. 17 years of being needed but not valued. 17 years of giving everything and receiving nothing but the privilege of doing it all again next year. 17 Thanksgivings, 17 Christmases, 17 Easters, countless birthdays, anniversaries, random Sunday dinners, hundreds of events where I was essential but invisible. Thousands of hours of my life spent creating moments for other people to enjoy while I watched from the sidelines. And in that moment, sitting in my dark kitchen surrounded by the detritus of another perfect family holiday, I finally understood the truth that had been staring me in the face for years. I wasn't the family chef. I wasn't even really family. I was a service provider, a resource to be used, not a person to be loved. The next morning brought the hangover of reality. My kitchen still smelled like turkey grease and disappointment. My body ached like I'd been hit by a truck, and my phone was already buzzing with Christmas planning messages. Margaret, should we do ham this year or stick with turkey? Margaret, what wine pairs with prime rib? Margaret, can you send me your pie recipe? I want to try making it myself this year. Spoiler alert, she would not try making it herself. For the first time in 17 years, I didn't immediately respond. I stared at those messages, feeling something new rising in my chest. Not sadness, not even anger yet. Just a crystalline clarity that cut through 17 years of conditioning and confusion. I was done. I was done being grateful for scraps of acknowledgement. Done pretending that being needed was the same as being loved. Done sacrificing my time, money, energy, and sanity so other people could have perfect holidays they'd never thank me for creating. I was done being invisible in my own life. The transformation didn't happen overnight. For weeks, I walked around in a fog of realization, seeing everything with new eyes. Every family photo on the mantle that didn't include me. Every family recipe that was actually my recipe. Every story about our family traditions that erased my contribution. Every assumption that I would handle, organize, coordinate, and execute while everyone else just showed up. I started researching terms like emotional labor and family scapegoat and narcissistic family systems. I found forums full of people with stories that sounded exactly like mine. Adult children who had become unpaid servants in their own families. People who gave and gave until there was nothing left, then got blamed for being resentful. Individuals who realized too late that they weren't family members. They were functions. The clarity was devastating and liberating at the same time. Devastating because it meant facing the truth about 17 years of my life. Liberating because it meant I finally had a choice. Christmas planning was ramping up. The family group chat was exploding with menu suggestions, gift coordination, and scheduling discussions. All directed at me, of course. All assuming I would make it happen, just like I always did. But something fundamental had shifted. The spell was broken. I could see the manipulation now, the love bombing followed by demands, the praise that came with strings attached, the way they made their needs sound like emergencies while treating my boundaries like inconveniences. On December 1st, I made a reservation at a resort 3 states away for December 23rd through December 27th. Non-refundable. I didn't tell anyone. I just needed to know I had an escape route before I found the courage to use it. The pressure intensified as Christmas approached. Margaret, we need to finalize the menu. Margaret, should we do a potluck this year or have you handle everything like usual? Margaret, what time should we be there Christmas Eve for prep? The assumption was total and absolute. Christmas happened because Margaret made it happen. Without Margaret, there would be no Christmas. Which gave me a terrible idea, or maybe a wonderful one. What if there was no Margaret? What if, for the first time in 17 years, they had to figure out their own holiday? What if they had to grocery shop and meal plan and coordinate timing and clean up their own messes? What if they had to face Christmas morning with nothing but their own effort to rely on? What if I gave them exactly what they deserved, which was exactly what they gave me? Nothing. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating. They would be furious. They would guilt trip me into coming back. They would make me feel selfish and cruel and wrong for abandoning my responsibilities. They would remind me that this is what family does for each other, conveniently forgetting that for 17 years the each other part had only gone one direction. But maybe, just maybe, they would finally understand what I brought to their lives. Maybe they would realize that their perfect family holidays didn't just manifest from thin air. Maybe they would appreciate, really appreciate, what I had been doing all these years. Or maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they would just resent me forever for forcing them to see the uncomfortable truth about how their family actually operated. Either way, I would finally know where I stood. Either way, I would finally get my answer about whether I was family or just the help. On December 15th, I typed the message that would change everything. I won't be cooking Christmas this year. I'll be out of town. Good luck. The moment I hit send on that message, my phone exploded. Within minutes, the family group chat turned into a digital hurricane of confusion, panic, and barely contained rage. "What do you mean you won't be cooking?" "Margaret, this isn't funny. We have 14 people coming. You can't just abandon Christmas." But I wasn't looking at those messages anymore. For the first time in 17 years, I had turned off the notifications and stepped away from my phone. The silence was deafening and absolutely beautiful. That first wave of panic was exactly what I expected. They genuinely couldn't comprehend a world where Margaret wasn't handling Christmas. It wasn't that they were evil people. They had just become so accustomed to my service that they forgot it was a choice, not an obligation. Like people who live near a waterfall and stop hearing the sound, they had stopped seeing my effort because it was always there. The calls started around 6 p.m. My mom first, her voice tight with what she probably thought was reasonable concern. "Margaret, honey, I got your message and I think there might be some confusion. Did you mean you need help with Christmas this year? Because we can absolutely pitch in more." I let it go to voicemail. Then David called. Then Sarah. Then my dad, who hadn't coordinated a family meal in his entire adult life, but was suddenly very concerned about Christmas logistics. I let them all go to voicemail. By 9 p.m., they had moved from confusion to bargaining. The texts were coming fast and furious now. "We can do a potluck. Sarah can handle the turkey. Maybe we should just order catering this year. Margaret, please call us back so we can figure this out together." But here's the thing they didn't understand. There was nothing to figure out. I had already figured it out. For 17 years, I had been figuring it out. Every menu, every timeline, every backup plan, every dietary accommodation. I had been the one doing the mental labor of Christmas while they did the fun part of just showing up. Now it was their turn. I spent that evening doing something I hadn't done in December for almost 2 decades. I relaxed. I ordered takeout Chinese food, poured myself a glass of wine, and watched Netflix. No menu planning, no grocery lists, no calculating cooking times or oven space. Just me, my couch, and the strange, wonderful luxury of not being responsible for everyone else's happiness. The second day brought escalation. The messages shifted from panic to guilt. "The kids are going to be so disappointed. Grandma was really looking forward to your stuffing. This isn't like you, Margaret. What's really going on?" They were pulling out every emotional manipulation tool in their arsenal, trying to find the magic words that would make me snap back into my old role. My mom showed up at my apartment that evening, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing her most concerned maternal expression. "Can we talk?" she asked, settling herself on my couch like she planned to stay until she got the answer she wanted. "Mom, I meant what I said. I'm not cooking Christmas this year." "But, sweetheart, why? Did someone say something to upset you? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Because we can help more, you know. We've just always assumed you loved doing it." And there it was, the gaslighting dressed up as concern. They had assumed I loved it. For 17 years, they had assumed that my exhaustion was enthusiasm, that my stress was joy, that my sacrifice was selfishness. They had assumed their way out of any responsibility for noticing how their assumptions affected me. "I do love cooking," I said carefully, "but I don't love being taken for granted. I don't love being invisible in my own family. And I don't love being treated like hired help instead of a daughter and sister." My mom's face cycled through several emotions: surprise, hurt, defensiveness, and finally, anger. "Margaret, that's not fair. We appreciate everything you do. We tell you all the time how grateful we are. When was the last time you thanked me? Not complimented the food. Thanked me for the work." She opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. "Well, you know we're grateful." It goes without saying. "Does it? Because I've been saying it for 17 years and nobody seems to hear me." The conversation went in circles for 2 hours. My mom alternated between guilt trips. "Your father is going to be heartbroken." Bribes. "What if we pay for all the groceries this year?" And gaslighting. "You're making this into something it's not." But I held firm. I was done being manipulated back into service. After she left, I found myself shaking. Not from fear, but from adrenaline. I had never stood up to my family like that before. I had never named the problem out loud, never called them on their behavior, never refused to enable their dysfunction. It felt terrifying and powerful and absolutely right. Day 3 brought reinforcements. Sarah called, using her sweetest voice. "Hey, Maggie, Mom told me you're feeling a little unappreciated lately. I had no idea. Listen, what if this year we all help out more? We could make it a real family effort." "What would that look like?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Well, I could bring wine and appetizers. David could handle cleanup. Mom could do decorations. It would be like a team effort." I almost laughed. After 17 years of doing everything myself, their idea of team effort was bringing wine and cleaning up. No one was volunteering to plan the menu, shop for groceries, prep ingredients, coordinate timing, or actually cook the meal. They wanted to feel helpful while leaving all the real work to me. "What about the turkey?" I asked. Silence. Then, "Well, you're just so much better at it than the rest of us." "What about the sides? Maybe we could all pick one dish to be responsible for. And who's going to coordinate that? Who's making sure we don't end up with 5 desserts and no vegetables? Who's creating the timeline so everything comes out at the same time? Who's shopping for the ingredients? Who's defrosting the turkey? Who's setting the table and serving drinks and making sure Uncle Bill's dietary restrictions are accommodated?" Another long silence. Then, in a smaller voice, "I guess we haven't really thought about all that." "Exactly. You haven't thought about it because you've never had to. I've been thinking about it for 17 years. That's when I heard it, the shift in her voice from sweet manipulation to real frustration. "So what? You're just going to punish us all because you're having some kind of breakdown? You're going to ruin Christmas for everyone because you're mad?" And there was the real Sarah, not the Instagram Sarah who posted about grateful family love, but the Sarah who saw my boundaries as punishment and my exhaustion as manipulation. The Sarah who could only understand my refusal to work for free as an attack on her perfect holiday experience. "I'm not ruining Christmas," I said quietly. "Christmas isn't my responsibility anymore. It's all of yours." I hung up and immediately called my therapist. Yes, I had started seeing someone after the Thanksgiving revelation. Dr. Chen specialized in family trauma and emotional abuse, and she had been helping me understand the dynamics I'd been swimming in for so long. "How do you feel about holding your boundary?" she asked during our emergency session. "Terrified, guilty, angry, free." I laughed shakily. "Is it possible to feel all of those at once?" "Absolutely. You're breaking a pattern that's been in place for 17 years. Everyone in your family has gotten used to a certain way of relating to you, and now you're changing the rules. They're going to push back hard because the current system works really well for them." "But what if they're right? What if I am being selfish? What if I really am ruining Christmas?" Dr. Chen leaned forward. "Margaret, whose responsibility is it to make sure your family has a nice Christmas?" "Well, everyone's, I guess. Each person should contribute." "And whose responsibility has it been for the past 17 years? "Mine." "And how did that feel?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. Exhausting, lonely, invisible. So whose Christmas were you actually ruining all those years? The answer hit me like a truck. My own. I had been ruining my own Christmas for 17 years, and nobody had ever cared about that. I had been stressed, overwhelmed, and isolated during what was supposed to be a joyful family time, and nobody had ever noticed or asked if I was okay. But the moment I decided to prioritize my own well-being, suddenly I was the selfish one. The 4th day brought the heavy artillery. My father. Dad was the family diplomat, the one who stayed out of conflict and smoothed over problems with his gentle demeanor and reasonable voice. If Mom was the stick, Dad was the carrot. "Hey, kiddo," he said when I answered his call. "I hear you're taking a stand about Christmas. Good for you." I was immediately suspicious. This was not the response I expected. "I talked to your mom and Sarah, and I think they understand now that maybe we've been taking you for granted a little bit." A little bit. 17 years of invisible labor was a little bit of taking me for granted. "So here's what I'm thinking," he continued. "What if this year we hire a caterer? Take the pressure off everyone. We could do it up right, make it really special, my treat." It was a good offer, better than I expected, but it missed the point entirely. "Dad, it's not about the work. It's about the respect. It's about being valued as a family member instead of treated like staff. Of course you're valued, Margaret. You're the heart of this family. Everyone knows that. If I'm the heart of the family, why am I not in any of the family photos? Long pause. What do you mean? Go look at Sarah's Instagram. Look at the Christmas photos from the past 5 years. Count how many include me. I waited while he presumably scrolled through social media, seeing his family through my eyes for the first time. I never noticed that before. I know. That's the problem. None of you notice. I'm essential until the moment I'm not needed, and then I disappear. Sweetheart, I'm sure that's not intentional. Dad, intention doesn't matter when the impact is 17 years of feeling invisible in my own family. We talked for another hour. He tried every angle, practical solutions, emotional appeals, promises of change, but I could hear it in his voice. He didn't really understand what the problem was. To him, this was about hurt feelings that could be solved with better communication and maybe some hired help. He couldn't see the deeper dysfunction, the way the family had organized itself around my unpaid labor while maintaining the fiction that it was all voluntary and appreciated. By day 5, the panic had turned to anger. David sent a long text about how I was holding Christmas hostage and making everything about me. Sarah posted a passive-aggressive Instagram story about family members who create drama during the holidays. Mom left a voicemail saying she was disappointed in me and that this isn't the daughter I raised. But the most revealing response came from my nephew Tyler, who was 12 and apparently more emotionally intelligent than the rest of my family combined. He sent me a simple text. "Are you okay, Aunt Margaret? Christmas won't be the same without you." I called him back immediately. "Hey buddy, I'm fine. I'm just taking a little break from cooking big dinners." "Is it because nobody helps you? Because I noticed that. You always work really hard and then everyone else gets to relax." Out of the mouths of babes. A 12-year-old could see what adults had been missing for 17 years. Something like that, yeah. That's not fair. I'm sorry nobody noticed before. I cried after that call. Happy tears and sad tears all mixed together. Tyler saw me. Really saw me, which meant I wasn't crazy, wasn't making it up, wasn't being overly sensitive. The problem was real, and it was visible to anyone who cared to look. December 23rd arrived like a gift. I loaded my suitcase into my car, double-checked my resort reservation, and drove away from everything I'd known for 17 years. No grocery shopping, no prep lists, no last-minute panic calls about dietary restrictions or extra guests. Just me, the open road, and the most beautiful silence I'd ever experienced. The resort was perfect, a cozy mountain retreat with a spa, excellent room service, and absolutely no family drama. I spent Christmas Eve getting a massage, reading a book by the fireplace, and eating dinner at the restaurant where someone else did the cooking and someone else did the cleanup. It was magical. Meanwhile, my phone was buzzing constantly with updates from the home front. The family group chat had devolved into chaos. Nobody knew how to defrost a turkey. The grocery stores were picked clean of decent sides. Sarah had volunteered to host, but realized she didn't own serving dishes for 14 people. David was Googling how long to cook 20-pound turkey at 10 p.m. on Christmas Eve. I turned off my phone and went to sleep. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold. I ordered room service breakfast, fresh fruit, perfect eggs Benedict, coffee that someone else had brewed, and settled in to enjoy the first Christmas in 17 years, where my only responsibility was to myself. My phone had 47 missed calls and 156 text messages. I scrolled through them like watching a disaster movie, horrifying but impossible to look away from. Christmas morning at my family's house had been, by all accounts, a complete catastrophe. The turkey was still frozen solid when they tried to put it in the oven. The sides were a random assortment of whatever people could grab from cleaned-out grocery stores. Nobody had made gravy. The timing was completely off. The kids were disappointed. The adults were stressed. And everyone was angry at me for ruining Christmas. But buried in the anger and chaos were a few interesting revelations. David admitted he had no idea how much work went into these dinners. Mom confessed she never realized how stressful hosting could be. Sarah posted an Instagram story about learning to appreciate the people who usually handle everything. They were learning, slowly, painfully, but they were learning. The most telling message came from my mom at 3 p.m. I spent 6 hours in the kitchen today and barely managed to feed half the people with food that wasn't even good. How did you make it look so easy for so many years? That was it. That was the acknowledgement I'd been waiting for. Not an apology, not a promise to do better, but at least recognition of what I had been doing all those years. Recognition that it wasn't easy, wasn't effortless, wasn't just something I did because I loved it so much. I spent the rest of Christmas Day at the spa, getting my nails done and thinking about the future. This wasn't just about holidays anymore. This was about fundamentally changing how my family saw me and how I saw myself. I couldn't go back to being the invisible family servant, but I also didn't want to lose my family entirely. There had to be a middle ground, a way to be part of the family without being the family slave, a way to contribute without being taken for granted, a way to be valued for who I was, not just what I could provide. December 26th brought a different kind of message. Tyler texted, "Christmas dinner was pretty bad, but we all talked about how much we miss you. Not just your cooking, we miss you." That afternoon, David called. His voice was different, humbler, more thoughtful. "Margaret, I owe you an apology, a big one. I never understood how much you did or how hard it was. Yesterday was eye-opening." "I appreciate that, David. Can I ask you something? What would it take for you to come back? Not to cooking everything yourself, but to being part of Christmas again?" It was a good question, a fair question, and I had been thinking about the answer. I need to be treated like family, not like staff. I need my contributions to be recognized and appreciated, not just expected. I need help, real help, not just cleanup afterward, and I need to be included in the family, not just the family functions. What does that look like practically? It means if there are family photos, someone makes sure I'm in them. It means if there's planning to do, everyone participates. It means if I cook, other people clean. It means saying thank you like you mean it, not just complimenting the food. That seems reasonable. More than reasonable, actually. It seems like the bare minimum of how families should treat each other. For the first time in days, I felt hopeful. Maybe this disaster would be worth it if it led to real change. The calls and texts kept coming over the next few days. Not angry ones anymore, but thoughtful ones. Apologies and questions and tentative requests to talk. My family was processing what had happened, and some of them were genuinely trying to understand. Sarah called on December 28th. "I looked at my Instagram photos like you told Dad to do," she said without preamble. "You're right. You're not in any of them. I never even noticed." "I know. That must have felt really awful." "It did. I'm sorry. I really am. I think I got so caught up in creating this perfect image of our family that I forgot to include the person who made it all possible." It wasn't a complete apology. It didn't address the 17 years of taking me for granted, but it was a start. "What can I do to make it right?" she asked. "Include me. Really include me. Not just in the work, but in the family." "I can do that. I want to do that." New Year's Eve brought an unexpected visitor. My mom showed up at my apartment again, but this time she looked different. Smaller somehow. Less certain. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began, "about feeling invisible. And I think you're right." I waited. "I think somewhere along the way, we started taking you for granted. We got so used to you handling everything that we forgot it was a choice you were making. We forgot to appreciate it. We forgot to appreciate you." "Mom!" "Let me finish. I raised you to be helpful and generous and selfless, but I think I forgot to teach the rest of the family to be grateful. I think I created a monster where you did all the giving and everyone else did all the taking." She was crying now. Real tears, not manipulative ones. "I don't know how to fix 17 years of getting it wrong, but I want to try, if you'll let me." We talked until 2 a.m. Really talked. About family dynamics and emotional labor and the difference between helping and enabling. About how praise without recognition is just another form of manipulation. About how love without respect isn't really love at all. It wasn't a magic fix. 17 years of dysfunction don't disappear in one conversation, but it was a beginning. January brought family meetings. Awkward, stilted conversations about how to do holidays differently. Who would host, who would cook, who would coordinate, how to share the load instead of dumping it all on one person. how to create traditions that included everyone instead of exploiting someone. It's been 6 months now since my Christmas rebellion. We've had Easter and Mother's Day and several birthday celebrations. The dynamics are slowly changing. I cook sometimes, but not always. Other people contribute more than wine and cleanup. The planning is shared, the work is distributed. And I'm in the photos now. Not every single one, but enough. Enough to prove I exist. Enough to show I belong. My family isn't perfect. We're still learning how to be better. But for the first time in 17 years, I feel like a member of the family instead of an employee. I feel seen instead of invisible. I feel valued for who I am, not just what I can provide. The best part? Last month, Tyler asked if he could help me plan his birthday dinner. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to learn, because he wanted to understand what went into creating special family moments, because he wanted to be the kind of family member who contributes instead of just consumes. That's when I knew it was worth it. The confrontation, the guilt, the temporary loss of relationships, all of it was worth it to break the cycle and create something better. Not just for me, but for the next generation. I'm not the family chef anymore. I'm not the family servant or the family scapegoat or the family ghost. I'm family, finally, truly, completely family. And that's the best Christmas gift I've ever given myself.